This video will go over the steps to set up the IP parameters on an EagleEye battery monitoring system using the WIZNET application. The first step to this process is to ensure that WIZNET is installed. Follow the on-screen prompts to install the WIZNET app. After WIZNET is installed, the next step is to disable the Windows Firewall. To do this, open the control panel and select Windows Firewall. There are two firewalls which need to be turned off, the one for private networks and the one for public networks. Select Turn Windows Firewall on or off, and then select Turn off for both firewalls, and then hit OK. You should see that both firewalls are now off. If for some reason you need to leave the firewall on, the alternative option is to run the EagleEye BMS Firewall script. This script is included with each EagleEye battery monitoring system. To run the script, simply double-click the rule create file and it will open the necessary ports needed for the EagleEye battery monitoring system to communicate with the computer. Now that the firewall is disabled, we need to set up a static IP on this computer. This computer will act as the data monitoring unit, or DMU for short. All battery monitoring systems installed in the field would technically communicate back to this computer. To do that, they need to know the IP address of the computer. To set up a static IP, open the Network Connections, and then select the network adapter that the battery monitoring systems will be connected to. Right-click the network adapter and select Properties. Under the Ethernet Properties window, select Internet Protocol version 4 and then select the Properties button. We need to enter the following IP addresses: an IP address for the computer, a subnet mask, and a default gateway. The actual parameters will vary depending on your network configuration. Before hitting OK, we want to open up the WIZNET app and copy these IP parameters over to the BMS settings. With WIZNET open, hit the search button to pull up the parameters currently configured on the connected BMS. If the connection is successful, you should see the MAC address of the BMS under the board list. In WIZNET, 4 IP parameters are shown. First is the local IP. This is the IP address of the actual battery monitoring system. Next, we have the subnet, the gateway, and the server IP. The first thing we need to do is match the server IP, gateway, and subnet to the same IP parameters configured over here. So the IP address of the computer is 192.168.0.5. So I want to make sure that I have that same IP address under server IP. Same goes for the gateway and the subnet. Once I confirm that these IP addresses match the computer, I will confirm that this is the IP I want for the actual battery monitoring system. If everything is correct the way I want it, I'll hit the Setting button to save the IP parameters to the battery monitoring system. At this point, the BMS should be able to communicate with the computer without issues. What I'm going to do now is run a ping test to ensure that the communication is active. Before I do that, I want to make sure I close the IP version 4 properties. To test the connection, I'm going to open up the command prompt and I'm going to ping the IP address of the BMS. As expected, the communication was successful with a 0% loss. At this point, the BMS should have no issues communicating with the computer.